On today's episode, we step back in time into British fighter pilot cockpits and into air raids as we fly through the Battle of Britain. The Battle of Britain was a military campaign fought during the Second World War by the Allies against the Axis powers. World War II was from 1939 to 1945, and the Battle of Britain took place during 1940. But who were the Allies and Axis powers? To put it simply, World War II was a war that involved all countries, with two main sides fighting. The main Allied powers were the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, the United States and China, as well as France. The Axis powers were Germany, Italy and Japan. Ultimately, the rest of the world took sides, and indeed, when invaded, were controlled by Axis powers. In the case of the Battle of Britain, France was an Allied power, but was successfully invaded by Germany, leaving Germany's sights on invading Britain. Thus, the Battle of Britain was to commence. The Battle of Britain is the first battle in history that can be categorised as a battle of information and management of the battle space. Put simply, one was trying to seize control of the airspace to further their control. If the Axis powers could control the airspace currently under control by Britain, it would strengthen their role in the war and inevitably help further invasion. But was Britain strong enough to hold on to it? Let's see. The protagonists were the armed forces of the British Empire versus the Luftwaffe of Germany. Frequently, during the Battle of Britain, neither the Navy or the Army get a mention, as they played a more or less passive role during the Battle of Britain, but nonetheless were paramount in World War II. From a strategic point of view, the Germans had to achieve not just air superiority over the English Channel, but air supremacy. The Germans needed to push the RAF back to operating north of the Thames, leaving the Royal Naval operating the English Channel alone. A failure to push the RAF back would have made any intervention of the Royal Navy a disaster for any Nazi invasion fleet. The Germans needed to wipe out the RAF. The German invasion of Britain was coded Operation Sea Lion. The German surface fleet had either been damaged or destroyed in the Norway campaign, and the Bismarck was not yet even in commission in the summer of 1940. It is safe to say the German Navy, the Kriegsmarine, would not survive a fleet invasion against the Royal Navy if they had started one, something the planners of Operation Sea Lion would have understood. Admiral Raeder, head of the Kriegsmarine, would not have drawn attention to the disadvantages of Operation Sea Lion to Adolf Hitler. You did not survive long as a senior courtier of a dictator without showing a can-do attitude. So what could the Nazis do to counter the scenario of failing to invade Great Britain with an expected failed attempt to destroy the Royal Navy? Attack the RAF, first to restrict their ability to fly into the air battle space above the English Channel, so as to be able to give their battleships their undivided attention. So let's take off our swim caps and look up to the clouds to see if they were successful in achieving air supremacy to lead the way for any chance of success for Operation Sea Lion to commence. Before we delve into the phases of the Battle of Britain, let's look at the structural differences between our opponents. The Luftwaffe was principally developed as an adjustment of the German army. Its main function was to support their army in all its operations. So each Luftwaffe was tasked and equipped to achieve this objective. Conversely, the RAF was divided into commands by function: Fighter Command, Bomber Command, Coastal Command, etc. Although the RAF came into being towards the end of World War I in 1918 and was independent from its formation, the Navy in particular did not like this and formed its own air component. Great news for Great Britain. Phase 1 was called Canal Camp, which in English translates as Channel Battle, and can be said to have started around the beginning of July 1940 and finished when the Luftwaffe turned from the skies attacking the RAF to attacking the RAF airfields in southern England from the 13th of August 1940. This phase saw the Luftwaffe trying to deny the English Channel and approaches to the Thames estuary to the Royal British Merchant Navy. It also bombed ports in an attempt to attack Britain's coast-based radar early warning system called Chain Home Low. Unfortunately for the Germans and the Luftwaffe, Phase 1 was a failure due to multiple reasons. The Allied powers' defence held. Phase 2 was called Eagle Day and began on the 13th of August 1940, with a shift of objective for the Luftwaffe. Now they had to destroy the RAF in the air for air supremacy, which so far hadn't worked, as well as now attack the RAF on the ground, focusing on the airfields, including flattened grass fields, as they couldn't tell the difference. Their workload just doubled. Despite Hitler forbidding any bombing of London on the night of the 24th and 25th of August 1940, a few lost Luftwaffe bombers strayed into the London defence zone. They dropped their bombs to aid escape after being given a rude awakening by the large number of anti-aircraft guns defending the capital. In response, Prime Minister Winston Churchill ordered Berlin to be bombed on the night of the 25th and 26th of August 1940. Hermann Goering had stated categorically this could not happen, but it did. Hitler intervened and ordered massive and continuous attacks on London, stretching the Luftwaffe to breaking point. Phase 3 was the daylight bombing of London, and Hitler and Goering made tactical errors, and among the issues was that the Luftwaffe's two engine bombers simply did not have the carrying capacity to devastate London, a massive sprawling city. They damaged it though, but with their focus on bombing London, the RAF was able to repair its battered airfields and did not have to retreat north of the Thames. This meant that during daylight bombing of London from the Luftwaffe, they could be intercepted by the RAF and deploy major operations to counteract them. The Luftwaffe losses mounted. While the Luftwaffe's objectives were failing, it did not mean the RAF and the Great Britain's efforts were not without mistakes or without losses of their own. They had both short and long-term problems and tried to resolve them. They also deployed 2 Polish squadrons based at Northolt, as well as 2 Czech squadrons to fight. Just under 80 Polish and Czech fighters also served in other fighter command squadrons and contributed hugely to the victory. The highest scoring squadron through the battle was 303 Squadron, one of the 2 Polish squadrons operating out of Northolt Airfield. One of the highest scoring aces was a Czech with 17 confirmed kills. Surprisingly, only 1 Commonwealth and Empire squadron was active and deployed in time to take part, a Canadian squadron. All in all, 574 non-British pilots served in the battle, alongside 2,533 British pilots, so one can see how important the overseas contribution was. The switch by the Luftwaffe to attacking London rather than focusing on air supremacy and destroying the navy ports to hope for navy invasion of any kind did not mean that the fighting wound down in any way, shape or form. So after the 26th of August, the bombing was relentless. Indeed, the 15th of September 1940 is celebrated in the UK as the Battle of Britain Day, because it is recognised as the day in the battle which was at its most intense. Daylight bombing had petered out by the 31st of October 1940, so the Battle of Britain was effectively over. But, of course, it wasn't. It was another 5 years before World War II came to an end. But for the Battle of Britain, Britain was victorious at holding their airspace and defending against any type of successful invasion from the Axis powers. So, the Battle of Britain has no real start date, but certainly can't be said to have started until the French asked the Nazis for peace terms and agreed them on the 22nd of June 1940. It can be said to have ended after the nighttime blitz ended on the 11th of May 1941 when the Luftwaffe began to redeploy for the invasion of Russia. Although, many historians and members of the RAF would suggest that once the attempt to obtain air superiority had failed, the Battle of Britain was over. Really, of course, the Battle of Britain was only ever over on VE Day in 1945. Ultimately, this episode of the Battle of Britain, focusing on the struggle for daylight air superiority, was during the summer and autumn of 1940. The details of the Battle of Britain we've discussed even further in another episode that really explores how and why the Luftwaffe failed, and why Great Britain were able to defend their airspace and protect the country. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Battle of Britain for History Made Simply. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and watch our next episode.